Well, you might remember 1 year ago, we were making a bunch of videos talking about this particular Montreal Canadiens goaltender, and how, after months and months of rumors, Jake Allen inevitably got traded from Montreal over to New Jersey. The title in the thumbnail was kind of cathartic because it was like, yes, okay, he finally got traded. Finally. And then we made videos talking about what he said about the trade and how there was a rejected trade earlier on and how all of the Montreal goaltending discourse was hovering around New Jersey. There were a bunch of conversations we had about Jake Allen. Firstly, when he got traded over to Montreal, and then the trade return finalized. The first one, that was. But let's revisit that Jake Allen trade from last year and make a new, updated, new and improved Jake Allen trade return video, because we are not talking about the St. Louis Blues and the Montreal Canadiens today. Oh no, we're talking about Montreal and New Jersey. But first, let's get into the profile. We gotta do a little bit of foreplay here. Jake Allen is 35 years old, 6'2", 198 left-handed catching goaltender, signed on till the end of 2030, making $1.8 million on the cap hit. This is a pretty big beefy deal. And if you head over to Puckpedia, you'll see just some of the details about it. This contract at $1.8 million was ultimately signed by the New Jersey Devils back on July 1st this year. It's a 1.88% of the cap contract, and it's just going to get lower and lower as the years go down. Yeah, sure. Jake Allen is 35 years old. Yeah, sure. The contract takes him till he's 40. That certainly won't age well into the next few years, but it's only $1.8 million against the cap every year. The Devils ultimately rewarded Jake Allen for what was a very strong showcase in his first season with New Jersey, a .908 save percentage and .266 goals against in 31 games played. I mean, the numbers don't look too amazing if you just dive into the holistic profile, but you look at some of the earlier games that Jake Allen had. This guy was a backup for New Jersey, yes, but aside from a few stinkers against Tampa Bay and New York, he was going out there with shutouts. He was going out there with 9.44s and 9.63s, 9.20s, 9.60s. There was a really bad losing stretch in there, but he still had a 9.13 in one of the games. Not to mention the continued ability to get shutouts after shutouts. Jake Allen was a fantasy darling. And I can't recall the number of times in all my different fantasy leagues people were picking up Jake Allen whenever he would start a game for the Devils, and then they'd drop him the next day because, of course, he's not a long-term hold. Allen was so clutch, and he had such a calming presence to his game that allowed the Devils to play their high-flying offensive style in front of him. And at 35 years old, the Devils were like, yeah, we really like you. How about you sign with us for 5 years so we can get that AAV down? Who cares if it's going to age poorly when you're 37, 38, 39? We like you a lot. And ultimately, I think for Canadiens fans who saw Allen suit up for the team since 2020, 2021, I think a lot of fans really are appreciative of what Allen was able to be for Montreal, and they're happy to see him doing well in New Jersey. Might I remind you, when Allen was acquired by the Habs, he was coming off of a very, very strong showcase in the Stanley Cup Playoffs and the Bubble Playoffs. The Blues lost in the first round to Vancouver, but Allen had a .935 save percentage. He then became a stud for Montreal the next little while. But the trade which ultimately sent him to New Jersey is what we're focusing on here today. It was made 1 year ago. On March 8th, 2024, the New Jersey Devils acquired Jake Allen from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick. That's it. Jake Allen was also sent over with 50% salary retained on the contract, so he only had a $1.925 million cap hit on New Jersey's cap, and of course, the contract is now expired. It expired at the end of this most recent season, so Montreal doesn't have this salary retention on their books anymore. But coming back over Montreal's way was the 2025 third from New Jersey. In the 2025 draft, the Montreal Canadiens used this draft pick to select Arseni Radkov in the third round, 82nd overall. The Habs had back-to-back picks in this spot in the draft, selecting defenseman Bryce Pickford and Radkov at 81 and 82. Of course, though, this 82nd pick was New Jersey's, which opens the door for us now to start taking a look at Radkov and diving into what sort of a profile he's got with the Blainville-Boisbriand Armada. Radkov is 18 years old, 6'4", 198, a left-handed catching goaltender. He has a smoothness to his game that comes across in his skating and how he moves from side to side, especially when tracking passes or players carrying the puck. Radkov, this most recent season, played for the Tyumenski Legion in the MHL, posting up a .918 save percentage and a .318 goals against in 19 games. You can really see where the MHL is progression-wise when you see the guy has a .918 save percentage, but a .318 GAA. Like, goal scoring is high in that league. He also had a .483 record, so obviously high save percentage, low GAA. This guy was getting tortured with shots every single game. But now he'll be taking his talent over to the Armada in the queue before heading over to the University of Massachusetts in 2026-2027. So Radkov is going to go through a really interesting development phase as a Montreal Canadiens goaltender. If this guy ever does become an NHL player, it's not going to be until maybe like 2028, 2029. He's going to take a while to go through this development, probably spend a few years in the NCAA, and then inevitably work his way into Laval and then maybe Montreal. All's this to say is that Jake Allen was traded for a draft pick that inevitably became Radkov, and I think Canadiens fans have all the more reason to pay attention to this dude and his overall development because of it. If you head over to the Elite Prospects Draft Guide and you read what they have to say about Radkov, sure, they rate him as a D-grade goalie prospect, but they do say he is a wild card amongst the goalie class. He is explosive and one of the younger players. He actually just turned 18 earlier this month, so that kind of puts into perspective how young he really is. And if you just take a look, I mean, look at these games. I didn't realize the game log for the MHL would be available here, but he loses in a 5-4 shootout loss, but he has 52 shots against. Crazy. He has other games over here where he's getting 43 shots against, 70 shots against. Ay, ay, ay. The guy loses 4-3 in overtime, but he has a .943 save percentage in the process. 40-plus shot against games are not uncommon for Arseni Radkov. Hopefully the Armada are able to defend a little bit better in front of him, as the Montreal Canadiens will be keeping their eyes out on this explosive young Belarusian goaltender to potentially make waves in the queue. But with all this in mind, keep in mind that Radkov is the finalized trade return piece that the Canadiens got for Jake Allen with salary retained. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this trade and how things are looking 1 year later. What are your thoughts on Jake Allen's massive contract extension, and do you think it's going to age well? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.